All right, nerds. We have a little bit of California politics for today. I have Lydia Kou, who is a fellow resident of the great city of Palo Alto, and she's running for state assembly. So, welcome to the show, Lydia. How are you?
Very good. Thank you so much, Tom, for having me. Yes, I am a fellow resident. I've been a council member and a former mayor of the city of Palo Alto for the last almost 8 years. By the end of this year, it would be eight. And yes, I've decided to run for state assembly at District 23, which consists of many cities, over 15. There's from Pacifica to Half Moon Bay to
Hmm.
Pescadero, crossing the mountains into La Honda, Woodside, Portola Valley. Um, uh, then we go into Atherton, Menlo Park, Los Altos Hills, over to Palo Alto, Mountain View, West San Jose, Saratoga, Campbell. It's very
Oh, wow. You go all the way to Saratoga. Wow. Yeah.
all the way to Saratoga. And I have to say, during this period of campaigning for the primaries as well as for the general, I've visited with most of these cities, and they are very, very different. So a lot of it has. So different that a lot of the states' one size fits all laws does not help, does not conform, does not do good for any of the communities. And that's one of the reasons why I've decided uh, to jump from city council on the local level into the state assembly. Because I think that our state legislators have lost sight of the communities that they serve, local, uber local. And I've decided to run for state assembly to represent the community of District 23 as well as Californians.
What would be an example of something where the state legislature has done something that, from a state perspective, I'm sure seemed like a reasonable thing, but then when you actually try and implement it at the local level, it kind of, maybe doesn't achieve the goals or, the objectives it was set out to go after.
Well, one of the biggest thing right now that we're faced with has to do with our regional housing needs allocation numbers for housing. And the state has it originally the housing element in each of the city's comprehensive plans, or some cities call it the general plan. These plans are made and formulated and go through rigorous community input, conversations, and also environmental review in order to properly plan for the growth of our city.
Mm-hmm.
And through the years, the state has imposed its land use and zoning from the state level into the local communities by more or less wiping out our comprehensive and general plans, our very diligent planning for our communities. They've enacted a lot of, first, they've put forward state laws which has um, jiggered or uh, made our methodology on how to calculate the housing numbers, where today it is three times the needed number. We have evidence that the state has been losing population, yet we're now forced to build three times the amount of housing uh, that may or may not be needed. For the most part, evidence shows that we need to focus on the truly affordable housing, whereas the state is saying just build any housing because it's going to trickle down, and we're going to find the affordable housing. That's going to take many, many years, and we have evidence to show from cities like Vancouver, which has spent years, decades, on building more and more housing based on the trickle down effect, and it hasn't become more affordable. As a matter of fact, there's a professor from Vancouver that has been speaking out. He has been very vocal about building more and more densify, and now he has switched and said, no, we have not seen that evidence where it has produced more affordable housing. So we're finding that the cost of building has gone up. Construction costs have gone up tremendously. In order to build these kind of housings per unit, it's costing about a million to $1,150,000,
Hmm.
$1,150,000 in order to build one unit. whether it's affordable, below market rate, or whether it is market rate. So, so that's one form of what the state has done, which has not has not worked out for communities. As a local elected official, it's just very hard for me to represent my constituents, to represent, you know, what's happening in their community, the loss of parking spaces, the congestion that they're feeling in on the roads, that the community character has changed, their neighborhood character has changed. So those are some of the things that we have to kind of figure out, how
Yeah.
to represent our constituents.
So, Lydia, I could imagine some people who hear this conversation would say, yeah, that's probably true that things that are uh, done at the state level don't always translate as intended at the local level, because they just don't have like the nuance or the understanding of the local conditions. On the other hand, I could see those same people saying, well, but if the state doesn't have any requirements or incentives or encouragement for more housing supply, that maybe the local jurisdictions will just kind of, resort to protection of whatever resources are available, and kind of not in my backyard uh, biases. How do you? What's your thoughts on trying to strike that balance?
Well, Tom, I would have to say, we need to look at the budget, the state budget. The state budget was in a surplus about eight, nine, a decade ago. Today we have a deficit, a huge deficit. It's about $68 billion of a deficit. And so, right now the governor and the state legislature has said that we balance the budget for this fiscal year, but they balanced it by taking out reserves from the state funding, from the state budget. And it's that this deficit is going to go on for many more years into the future. So a lot of these things are subsidized. The state throws a lot of monies here and there and everywhere in order to subsidize so many programs. And at some point, they're going to run out of other people's money. What I'm seeing right now, in this November ballot, is a whole slew of bonds and taxes that is imposed and passed on to property owners, and it's a lot of borrowing of money, which you have to pay back with interest. There was the RM4, which is the regional measure for a $20 billion bond in order to build affordable housing, and then also for infrastructure. But the definition for affordable housing is 140% of a county's area median income, which
Mm.
is in the top six figures. It could go to 150, it's almost 200 plus $1,000. So you want a person who is retired and on limited income, that is barely able to pay for groceries, medication, and their property taxes, to now suddenly have to subsidize somebody who's making $200,000 a year for their housing. I I and then on top of that, with the 20 billion, it's there. The state is, and the interest that is, plus the principal at the end of 70 some years, is going to be about $48.3 billion. So this doesn't work in math for me, and it doesn't work for a lot of people, because it's going to put them out of their home. So in the long run, will they be actually uh, uh, creating more unaffordability and putting people out of their homes, or is it going to truly help? And I think that the state needs to kind of like review some of what is important. And I would say that if I'm elected, I want to go back to basics. I want to say that, in our state right now, our fourth graders are reading at 33rd percent in the nation.
Hmm.
Our homelessness rate is the highest in the nation. Crime rates is sixth highest in the nation. And our utilities are also one of the second highest in the nation. There's something very wrong in there. And I think that we need to go back to the basics and address K to 12 education, especially in the early years, pre K to sixth graders, so that we can look at how our kids are going to be learning reading and math. And one of the ways to do it is, let's look at our high speed rail. That is like a train going to nowhere, yet we keep on funding it. And why are we doing that? um, let's look at our public safety. For the last since 2014, we had a way of making sure that Proposition 47, which said that, we want to make sure that we reduce the prison rates. And so if anybody steals at $950 or
Mhm.
less, they're just given a misdemeanor and turned and say, go and do it again. And no, I think it's time that we stop that. We may people might, our state officials might feel that um, that we don't have that much of a high crime rate, but for the person that it happened to, it matters. For the person that had to experience it, or for the small mom and pop retail store that had experienced the theft, been broken into, now where they have to spend money in order to repair it and to replace the merchandise, and for their insurance having gone up, that matters. So I want to say, state need to focus on where they're supposed to be focused at, and leave the communities to do what they're best at. Another way, in order to say, to look at building more housing and for the people that needs it. Why we taxing all of the property owners? Most of them are going to be the mom and pops. Where is the corporations in this? Yeah, so I think that
Mhm.
we need to ask that question. Where are they? Why is it all concentrated here in the Bay Area? Why is all the corporations focused in these kind of high density locations? A lot of them can work remote headquarters elsewhere. Why are we not looking at um, uh, dispersing this into other areas so that they experience the economic growth as well? So those are just many of the questions
Yeah.
that I think that our government needs to answer, and also to review and have the budget and the finances audited.
Yeah, you raised the topic of the proposition that talked about the crimes for $950 or less kind of thing. And I was a little torn on that one myself, in that I was like, ooh, I clearly see the rise in sort of organized shoplifting and things like that, and it's very unsettling, and you feel bad for the businesses and then the other customers who are just witnessing this kind of activity. But I think the other thing I heard was, well, if we roll this back and incarcerate these people, that we wouldn't have enough room in the prisons for the people who are doing much more serious crimes. How do you think about the capacity of the kind of justice system to handle that?
As a matter of fact, it's kind of funny that you say that, because I visited, the county of Santa Clara Supreme Court recently had an open house where they invited officials, elected officials on the local level, to visit with some of the judges there and so forth. And a
Hmm.
lot of the judges were actually perturbed with all of this. And yes, they want to reduce the prison population, incarceration for the lower crimes. But what they're proposing is give us back the ability to do that, so that we can put people into treatment, those who need the treatment, and have a effect on that too. What I've seen in since 2014 with Proposition 47 is that there is a senator who's actually advocating for San Francisco to give out clean needles as a way to help drug addicts. What is that going to do? They're still using drugs. They're still harming themselves. They're living on the streets and they're stealing and hurting other people. So how is that doing anything? But give the opportunity, give the ability to the judges to do what they can do in order to affect change. And I say that, rehabilitation and also, you know, having treatment is another method of ensuring that not only having treatment, but rehabilitation, treatment, as well as job training. So they have to go hand in hand, but have these programs in place. So when somebody does a crime, that this opportunity is given to them. And people with higher crime, then let the judges decide where it is as a felony and how many years. If it's also a repeat crime, then let the judges decide that. The judges also said that because they had less, they're turning away people on misdemeanors so that we have less cases to do, because at the district attorney level they have already kind of taken care, oh, you're a misdemeanor, we're not going to prosecute. So judges are not seeing it, and the state is cutting their budget. So it's a broken system. It's a really broken system. um, Police officers, district attorneys, people who work in the district, prosecutors, judges, they all want to do the job. Let them do the job. Why are we governing that from? Why is the state legislature governing that from the executive and the legislative branches? They're supposed to be separate. The judicial branch is supposed to be separate. The executive branch, as well as the legislature. Now they're all working. They're all influenced by the executive and the legislature. So judicial has no
Yeah.
opportunity to do what they're supposed to do.
So, Lydia, if I had to summarize, what I'm hearing is your approach would be, hey, the state government should maybe be reined in a little bit, maybe be a little more fiscally responsible, defer a little more to local communities. Is that a fair summary of kind of some of the themes that are motivating you?
Thank you for for summarizing that. Absolutely. We have the different levels in government for a purpose. We have the local municipalities, we have the county, and we have the state, we have the executive, and then we have the judicial. All of it have its purpose. Let them do what they're supposed to be doing. Right now, I'll give you an example. County gets the funding for hospitals, for medical care. And the thing is, a lot of it is being pushed onto cities now because state has not done its share either. So there's the state hospitals, there's the county hospitals, and they have the medical services. Cities don't have that. Yet a lot of this is now being pushed onto cities in order to care for mental health, to care for other matters, which has to do with the medical field. So that's one example that I think that they need to take that back, because cities do not have the funding for these kind of they don't have the funding. They don't even have the professional staffing to do these kind of things. So your assessment is correct.
Well, Lydia, thank you so much. I know we've got 1 week left till everybody's got to get their ballots in, and actually less than a week now. So hopefully people who are watching this and trying to research who to support for their state assembly representative in our district will for sure take a look at what you're offering. And if they feel like, hey, it's time to kind of tighten our belts a little at the state level and be a little more fiscally responsible and push more decision making down to local communities, it sounds like you're their candidate.
Yes, and may I just kind of close with the following? Vote yes on Proposition 36. Vote no on Proposition 5. And lastly, of course, I would very much be honored and humbled with your vote for Lydia Kou for State Assembly District 23.
We will absolutely make sure I'll put some links to some of these propositions for people who want to do a little extra review. And best of luck to you, Lydia. I know it's a big week, and appreciate you spending time on the Little Nerds for Humanity podcast.
I hope I run into you at somewhere around the city. You
Yes,
take
I will
care.
definitely look out for you, and appreciate you coming by, and good luck with next week.
Thank you.
Bye, Lydia.
Bye-bye.
All right. That was Lydia Kou, who is running for state assembly in my district, and she's a city council person for my town. It's a really interesting perspective that she shares. I think there's this notion that, people assume everybody in California is, hardcore activists, kind of AOC wing of the party. I think Lydia kind of represents more of a what we used to call blue dog Democrat, maybe. Which I think is probably a good thing, to have some options out there. And she's definitely bringing the state can't just dictate to every town what it should do, especially if it's not providing enough funding or if it's running a deficit. Really cool conversation. And I'll definitely consider, I've had Mark Berman on the show in the past. He's a great guy too. So one of the benefits I think we've got in the, San Francisco Bay Area is very capable candidates. And, but I think they present different perspectives. And so for folks who are still making their decision on their ballots here in Northern California, or if you're in Silicon Valley, you'll probably want to check out Lydia's positions and compare it to Mark's. And I think you've got a little bit of a sense of, her worldview. And I think a lot of people would be in favor of it. So we'll see how it goes for Lydia. Maybe we'll try and get her back on the show afterwards and talk about her plans going forward if she wins. Now, I do want to thank the channel members because this channel, it's a little channel, but it keeps going partly because we have the Nerds for Humanity channel members, and they help me cover the streaming and podcast hosting fees and, thumbnail editing software, yada, yada. So let's give a shout out to them. And then I'm going to give you, since we're all here live, I'll give you some thoughts on the presidential election because, I'm sure that's on top of everybody's mind and never too late to talk about that. So let's start with thanking our members, and then I'll give you my POTUS update. All right, let's see. YouTube, here we are. Our biggest supporter is Soldier One. He is a member of the Nerds for Humanity cabinet. At the one level down is our members of the Nerds for Humanity Congress, Kristen Slevin, Bike, and Zig PC. And then under them are the Nerds for Humanity City Council, Gene, David, DK, Jack Lego, Mr. History, Mona, Von, Yang, Dean, Galessa, Jay Perrin, Dana, Jason, Daniel, Jeremy, Mickey, Yoda, Jackson, and Q. And then we have our registered nerds, only $1.99. And I'll scroll through these amazing nerdlings. Love you all. All right. So now, what are my takeaways on the POTUS thing? So I'm actually going to be in Nevada this weekend canvassing for Harris. So I've helped cut turf, which is like get out the vote kind of geographic planning packets. And for Pennsylvania, I've audited turf for Georgia to make sure that the canvassers have really good turfs, like areas to knock. They have the right number of doors, yada, yada. And then this weekend, I'm going to be knocking myself on the ground in Nevada. I think that maybe conveys to you how close this thing is. And I'm not going to try and convince everybody that Kamala Harris is like the ultimate candidate ever. She's fine. She's a generic Democrat. She's going to support expansion and strengthening of the Affordable Care Act. She's going to roll back the Trump tax cuts for the billionaires and millionaires. She's probably going to continue to support the defense of Ukraine. She's probably going to continue to support the defense of Israel, but with some conditions. Not a lot of drama. She'll sign the bipartisan border bill, and hopefully, like, she will be forced to work with a Republican Senate. And I kind of like the idea of a Democratic president and a Republican Senate being forced to compromise. And so that might be good. Like, whereas a Trump White House and a Trump Senate, and then a Democratic Congress that hates Trump, like, spells disaster, in my opinion. But let's take a look at the polls and the betting odds, and then I will wrap up because this is kind of bonus content for you guys. I know the original purpose of the stream was Lydia's interview. Okay, let's take a look at the polls. Nevada, where I'm going to be, 47.5 to 47.4. Pennsylvania, the ultimate prize, 47.9 to 47.5. Wisconsin, 48.2 to 47.4. Michigan, 47.9 to 46.9. Let's see. Well, we could look at North Carolina. 48.3 to 47.2. I think you guys get the picture. This thing is tighter than a tick's butt. So, buckle up. It's going to be crazy next week. And there's probably going to be a lot of accusations on both sides and probably escalation and drama from clearly one side. We know which one that is. Now, you heard me say, like, hey, this race isn't about Kamala. People are like, well, I don't know what race she is and all this stuff. It's like, really? Is that the biggest thing on your mind right now? Like, whether or not Kamala thinks of herself as African-American or Asian or both? Like, who cares? Here's your alternative. Let's just remind ourselves. And credit to Jimmy Kimmel, who put this together, which may result in me getting a copyright strike. I don't know. But I think Jimmy would want us to share the work that he's done.
Over the next 4 weeks, we have no choice but to absolutely replace Obamacare, and we're going to come up with a much better plan. We're going to come up with a great health plan, and this is a great plan. Wait till you see the plans we have coming out literally over the next 4 weeks. We have a plan coming out, an additional plan coming out in a very short period of time. We're going to have fantastic health care, and the plan is coming out over the next 4 weeks.
We're signing a health care plan within 2 weeks.
9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan?
Can you trust
and
this
can
guy?
you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan.
I have concepts of a plan.
We already have the concept of the plan.
I think he prefers the campaign more than he likes the
We'll be
government.
announcing that in about 2 months.
Can you commit to prioritizing legislation to make childcare affordable? And if so, what specific piece of legislation will you advance?
Well, I would do that. And we're sitting down. I was somebody, we had Senator Marco Rubio,
What
and my
kind of
daughter
word
Ivanka was
salad
so
is this?
impactful on that issue. It's a very important issue. But I think when you talk about the kind of numbers that I'm talking about, that because look, childcare is childcare. It's something you have to have it.
Who is
Your
this
child
guy?
goes to school and they don't even call you, and they change the sex of your child.
Oh, like at
Perform
lunch hour?
sex change operation and send them back home. Make the boy into a girl and not tell the parents.
Your boy leaves the school, comes back a girl.
It was a he and comes back a she. You say, Jimmy, I love you so much. Go have a good day in school. And your son comes back with a brutal operation and often without parental consent. Can you even believe we're saying this?
No.
The windmills, they don't work. They're rusting and rotting. They're making a lot of noise. I could hear it for 2 miles away.
You
They're
want
destroying
4
the
more
country.
years of this?
If you want to
guys?
see a lot of dead
4 more
birds, go
years
to
of
a
this
windmill and
piece of
just
work?
look underneath. You'll see birds all over the place. It looks like a bird cemetery. They're killing the bald eagle and other eagles.
They're eating
and they
the
kill all
dogs.
the whales, right? They're driving the whales, I think a little batty. And they say the
They're
noise
eating the
causes
pet.
cancer. You tell me that. Wah, wah, wah. The wind is bullshit. But if I'm sitting down and that boat's going down and I'm on top of a battery and the water starts flooding in, I'm getting concerned.
Okay, you get the picture. This is not a serious person. This is a great entertainer. He should go back to Manhattan and film future episodes of The Apprentice, Senior Edition, and ride into the sunset. But that guy, I don't want to wake up every morning wondering what the hell he has done. And I don't want to wake up every morning wondering why we haven't done anything about healthcare or why we abandoned the defense of Ukraine when they were willing to do all the fighting and all the dying just to defend their own border. And why our president is palling around with Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping and North Korea, like, Kim Jong-un, like this. What is this? What world do we live in where our president wants to turn their back on NATO, but writes love letters and sends personal medical supplies to Vladimir Putin? This is just crazy. Please make sure you vote. Please vote. Even if you are in a blue state, vote, because we're going to need to run up the popular results, because if he wins the electoral by a whisker, we don't want him claiming he has some kind of mandate. Whoever wins is going to have to do bipartisan reform on immigration, healthcare, and is going to have a real hard job with foreign policy given the state of the world. And that requires a person who's serious, who's intellectually curious, who is of high character. And I think we know that between these two, there's one that you definitely can't vote for. And then there's one that you're like, okay, let's give her a chance. So hopefully you agree. With that, I'll say bye, nerds.